Hello, folks. I'm back with a firearms review. Unfortunately, yesterday I had a really bad day at the range. I had my Kimber Super Carry Ultra, which is one of my favorite compact 1911s, and unfortunately, I just had nothing but problems with it here as of late. Out of 50 rounds, I had 15 malfunctions, and it was time to basically say I had to let it go because if you're carrying that in your carry rotation, that's not a safe option if you're going to keep having malfunctions. While I was at the range, it's also a gun shop, so I looked to trade it in and get a replacement. But I saw a firearm that I've always wanted, and it was the Beretta 92. But this is the Beretta 92 M9A1. The Beretta 92 M9A1 is the what the United States Marines had adopted for their carry firearm. Now, a lot of military guys and so forth has greatly criticized the Beretta M1, that's Beretta M9 pistol because there was a lot of problems that they were having on the battlefield, such as with sand and also other sorts of issues that they were having, which were basically mechanical issues and so forth. Well, I'm here to tell you that most of those problems were basically from poor maintenance, and a lot of it not only from poor maintenance. They when they first introduced the firearm, they also had these rounds from Winchester, which were high pressure rounds that were not really compatible for the makeup of that firearm. And then you probably heard rumors about maybe the slides were shooting back and hitting soldiers, etc., and crack frames and so forth. And it's basically because the rounds were not compatible and were not specifically designed for that firearm. And Winchester at the time had that particular contract. It's gotten to a point where the Beretta was criticized for a lot of different things. Uh, Also, with the magazines, there were sand issues and things like that. The case about that is that the sand that was getting inside. Of course, the military wants to save and cut corners financially. So what they did was they contracted other magazine companies, such as I can't think of the other. Checkmate is the name of the company I'm thinking of, and they still had issues. They went cheaper and it didn't work. And unfortunately, by the time they tried to recycle those back, they just had so many issues. And if you look on this particular firearm, uh, you notice on the M9A1, this particular magazine has a PVD coating, which allows for the sand not to stick or cause any type of malfunctions far as feeding ammunition. I'm going to clear this because there's nothing in here, but I want to at least clear that for people to let them know that this is a safe firearm, as you see, clear. Uh, and yes, there were some issues, and people have criticized it. This firearm has been criticized so much that the by the either the government or the U.S. military, whoever is writing the checks for these firearms, that Beretta actually sued the government for, I guess, defamation of character of their company, making their company, ruining their company's reputation. So Beretta sued and won. It was a $1 million award that they got, and so they can clear their name. So the U.S. Marines adopted this pistol here. I'm going to just go over some of the features. Like I did tell you about the magazines and so forth. The number one feature that what the the Marines requested was a slight picatinny rail or rail that can handle any light fixtures, lasers, or whatever that they needed. So that was an upgrade from your normal M1 pistols. Also, what was different is the trigger guard here. The trigger guard was reinforced, and if you notice real good, I'm trying to get this to the camera. If you notice really good, that there are no serrations up front, but they made the trigger guard wider, and you see like a little indentation here. Also, they wanted a few other upgrades. One of the upgrades was it definitely had to have front strap checkering instead of just the smooth lines that go through the front, as well as the back instead of the straight smooth lines. They wanted some checkering here. Of course, you see your lanyard loop and so forth. What's interesting is I noticed a difference between the regular M9 and this particular one, the M9A1, is you can see if you're looking here, there's like kind of a curve right here where you can get a good grip. And it kind of curves and then it like stops like it's a 1911 pistol. And it also reminds me of a CZ Shadow 2 in that respect. And it gives you a good purchase. It's supposed to be that you would be able to get a better grip. I called Beretta up this morning because I needed to clarify something because people were saying that the trigger was polymer, and I got an explanation from the tech over there. The trigger is metal, but it's polymer coated. So, which I was like, oh wow, yeah, that was kind of different. But what I like about the polymer coating, you won't really notice it. I think it helps you get a better grip when you're pulling the trigger because sometimes when you have metal triggers, they're so smooth that your fingers slide and slip. So this polymer coating is I guess to aid in that, but that's what the tech told me. The other thing the tech also explained to me that this lever here, the safety decocker, this is polymer. Actually, it is. I did not know it was polymer, but yes, this is polymer, but on this side, it's metal. I don't know if they were trying to save weight or anything like that on that particular decocker slash safety. It just kind of like really took me for a loop there that this was polymer and this side is metal. One of the negatives about this firearm that people are going to mention is the sights. The sights are not dovetail sights. They are made into the frame, and that's it. Same thing with the rear. You cannot adjust for windage or anything. They're made into the frame. And a lot of people will say that's not a good thing, etc. But I think what they're thinking was if you're out in battle with this particular firearm and you have a lot of times I've seen in my law enforcement career, a lot of people would lose their front sights to their Glocks. So I think their reasoning is they don't want to lose sights or want to be able to have that soldier have that permanent sight there so they won't lose it. But a lot of people are not going to be happy with these sights because if you look, these sights are kind of like hard to sometimes get a good sight picture. It's okay. I shot with it pretty well, but it's okay, and some people complain about it. It's reminiscent of the CZ P01 that I have. That I have. The difference is with the P01 where I'm lucky, I can change out the front and the back sights. This you have to just basically deal with it at this point. Another bone of contention about this firearm that people complain about is about the decocker safety. I forgot to mention that a lot of times when people are attempting, or soldiers are attempting to rack the slide back, they are worried that they would hit the decocker safety, and when it comes back into battery and it goes forward, they would forget that it was there, and then, or in a stressful situation, they will pull the trigger and you have a dead trigger. And then, which is not a good thing. So you have to train yourself to, after you decock it, make sure that you bring it right back to the fire position. So, and even the Beretta manual stresses that at least 5 times in their manual to make sure that you bring it back into firing mode because when you're about to fire your pistol, or if you need to have it in an emergency situation. So just remember, decock, flip up. And like I said, a lot of people have that problem, but there is a kit for this, and the kit is called the G model kit. Some of the newer Berettas are called 92Gs. What that is a decocker only. So when you bring it down and decock it, it pops automatically by itself. So you wouldn't have to worry about that. So there is a kit that you can buy from Beretta, and you can change that out and get that straight so you won't have those issues. The other negative that I could see, it's pretty much not a negative, but if it depends on how your hand size is the magazine release button here. Now, right here, this is my normal grip. I cannot really depress this like I want to. So what I have to do is camp my hand around and then hit the magazine release. Well, that is just one of the issues that you could have with this. But what I will say is that if you go to the Beretta site, they have a kit that's only for like $30. It's just a one piece. You take the panels off on your grip panels off. You push it out and put the new one in, and the new one is extended a grip magazine release button. It's a lot bigger, and you won't have to change your grip. Berettas are very easy to take down. All you have to do is basically bring your slide back, hit it, lock it, and on this particular side, you just press here and you pull your takedown lever, release the slide release, and you pull it off in one shot. Of course, there's your spring, and the guide rod for this is made out of polymer. Now, one thing that this locking block right here is, you want to at least keep this lubricated, but this locking block right here has been reinforced. So like I told you about that whole situation where the slides were coming through, but Beretta has already did reinforcements of that. Okay, I put the firearm back together off camera. I didn't want to waste any time. Yes, there are. This is one of the firearms that I really wanted to have in my collection because, hey, those action movies, Lethal Weapon with Martin Riggs, and then you have Die Hard with John McClane. These were like the really big firearms back in the day when those movies were out in the 80s, the Lethal Weapon series, the Die Hard series. But not to mention that this was the America's firearm when they went from the 1911 to the Beretta 92s. But this is the M9A1 version, the one that was adopted by the United States Marines. I forgot to mention one thing, but I do not have a snap cap, and I'm not going to put a live round. There is a chamber indicator right at the extractor. So when there's a round in the chamber, you'll see something red as the round is cycled in. And that's one of the other features. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. Here's what makes this firearm very unique. What makes it unique, and I forgot to mention that as well, you'll see a tiny little ramp right here, and that's pretty much like, it's very minute. It's a very, very tiny ramp right there. What I like about this design, it reminds you of like a blowback pistol where the barrel is pretty much fixed. And if you notice, like if you have the Browning design, such as anything like from a CZ or SIG or anything else, when the slide is open, the barrel kind of sticks up at a certain degree like that. If you notice on the Beretta, the barrel is totally straight, and that's because of that locking mechanism that's the barrel is connected to connect to the frame, and also to the slide. That's one of the reasons why that locking block is there. So that's where you see this barrel is just totally straight. So putting an empty mag in. Now, if just imagine the round is there, the round does not have to travel on any type of angle so much. That cutout there is just in case, so it can feed properly. But usually that round is going to go pretty much straight, not totally straight, but it's pretty much, that's why that ramp is there. So it will go pretty much straight in there without the barrel tilting. This aids the firearm to be accurate at best, and it aids for proper cycling without any malfunctions. Now, a lot of people have said that the barrel can get dust or dirt. Remember, this firearm has been around with the military for about 30 years. So, yes, have there been issues? Yes, there can be. There can be debris that's there. But for the most part, it's a serviceable firearm. It's always been. The only other thing I can caution you on is when you're firing this, make sure you keep your hand off of this portion. Usually you have a full slide cover, but you just got to be a little mindful that if you're not used to a pistol like this, do not touch the barrel. You can burn yourself slightly or whatever the case may be. So that's what some people will complain about, but that's all really just a matter of training to me. So a lot of people ask me, why did I pick this pistol? Is, like I said, I always wanted one. And when you think about it, what's going on right now, everybody's trying to jump on whether or not, or make a decision on whether or not they should get the SIG M17. And we know what happened there with that as far as some drop issues or whatnot. Every firearm has its growing pains, and as you see, this firearm had its growing pains as well, and usually to the negligence of basically, well, of improper maintenance. But I would encourage anybody to buy one of these for their collection. It's basically really a firearm that was a piece of history. It was also in the entertainment industry for history with movies and so forth. And also it was one of the Wonder Nines. This was the number one Wonder Nine or double action, single action firearm when police departments were changing from revolvers to this before Glock stole its thunder. So I hope you like this review of this pistol that I picked up. Unfortunately, it didn't work out with me with my Kimber Super Carry Ultra, but I got something that I really like that I've always wanted. So with that, I'd like to say, try this out. Happy shooting. Take care.